Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for this episode of Healthzone with Gilbert Cheah. Now, this is a very special episode because after this episode, we're going to be taking a break and deciding how we might revamp the show. It was almost a year ago that we started this Healthzone with Gilbert Cheah, and this is our 34th episode. Thanks to all of you for the hundreds of thousands of views that we have gained over Facebook, YouTube, and IGTV, not to mention the audience on the podcast channels. For this episode, I wanted to look back at the previous shows that we did and highlight 8 health topics and advice that I think are the most important for everyone to be aware of and to be reminded of. So here's the 8 most important health tips from the past year, which I will go back over and share with you. These are not in any particular order because they're all important in different ways and would apply differently depending on who you are. So just listen to them all and see which ones apply most to you and take it from there. Number 1, get tested and know your genes. This is such an important and yet frequently overlooked step in good health. Go for regular health screenings. If you don't know your health condition, you cannot fix problems and take the right steps. And many health issues start small and grow over the years. And if you do not catch them while they are just starting, you will suffer from far more severe consequences when you're older. This doesn't just apply to screenings for serious issues such as cancer and heart disease, but also for functional issues such as your eyesight, for example. You need to be aware of your family history and genetic predisposition to health conditions. Our genes play a big role in whether we develop certain diseases and conditions, along with our environment and lifestyle. And knowing our family medical history allows us to take steps to reduce our specific risks, such as adjusting our lifestyle and diets to lower our chances of developing the same conditions that our parents and other relatives suffered from. Tip number 2, don't be too much of a loner. Social isolation can contribute to dementia and other diseases. This surprised a lot of people when I first brought this up because when a person has no one to talk to or communicate with, when they are alone most of the time or all of the time, their risk of developing dementia actually increases by over 50%. Social isolation also increases a person's risk of heart disease and stroke, and not surprisingly, loneliness is also associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Now, when we think of socially isolated persons, we normally imagine someone who's living alone without family or friends. But there's another form of social isolation that is just as harmful, even if the person is right there living with a family, and that is someone who has lost their hearing. When a person loses their hearing, they are unable to partake in conversations, they cannot watch TV or listen to music or the radio, and they're deprived of stimulation and engagement. And when this happens, parts of the brain actually can shut down and the brain can shrink. Constant stimulation and interaction is so important to the brain that when it is deprived and cut off from the world, the brain functions decline and the risk of dementia increases. Individuals with moderate to severe hearing loss are up to 5 times more likely to develop dementia. So whether you're a senior facing hearing loss or know of someone, please make the effort to go and see a specialist to get your hearing tested and get a hearing aid. Losing your hearing and your social interactions could lead to losing your mind. Tip number 3, sleep is crucial for good health. Sleep is necessary for the well-being of every type of tissue and system in the body. From the brain, heart, and lungs to our metabolism, immune function, mood, and disease resistance. Lack of sleep or getting poor quality sleep increases the risk of disorders, including high blood pressure, obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, depression, and dementia. And sleep is important for many brain functions, including how nerve cells, which are the neurons, communicate with each other. Unlike what many people think, that your brain is being switched off during sleep, it's actually remarkably active even while we're sleeping. While we're asleep, our brains are being serviced and tuned up like a race car at a pit stop during an F1 race. No matter how powerful or fast your race car is, if you don't get it tuned up and repaired, you're going to be damaging the mechanisms and engines, and this damage will just build up. Research has shown that sleep plays a very important role in removing toxins in the brain that build up while we are awake. People with Alzheimer's disease, for example, have clumps of two types of sticky substances in their brains, known as beta amyloid and tau proteins, which are believed to damage and destroy brain cells. Now, during sleep, especially deep sleep, the body releases cerebrospinal fluids that help to wash away these sticky plaques from the brain. A neuroscientist described this as your brain taking the garbage out while you're off in dreamland or getting a shower. If your body doesn't get the quality sleep that it needs, over time, this beta amyloid proteins may not be adequately cleared from the brain, and this can lead to the buildup of this dangerous protein, which raises your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Tip number 4, that's very important, watch out for a silent killer, and that is diabetes. Now, diabetes is a major health issue in Singapore, and it's getting worse. We have over 500,000 known diabetics, and the number of people with this disease is increasingly rapidly. But many people with the condition are unaware that they even have it. Diabetes affects different races differently. It affects Indians and Malays more than Chinese, mainly because of obesity, which is more prevalent among Malays and Indians. And here's a shocking statistic. 25% of Chinese over the age of 60 have diabetes. But for Malays, it's 50%, and for Indians, 60% of those aged 60 and above have diabetes. This is really a silent killer because in its early stages, there are almost no noticeable symptoms, and many people do not even know that they have it. But having too much sugar in your blood damages your organs and blood vessels. Many common causes of death, like stroke, heart attack, and kidney failure, can be traced back to diabetes. And if you ever need surgeries for anything someday, having diabetes puts you at higher risk for complications. Insulin resistance is also linked to an increased risk of some cancers, Alzheimer's disease, mental health disorders, and other chronic conditions. So do get yourself tested and be aware and check whether or not you have diabetes. Point number 5 is related to this. Excess sugar is really bad for you. Now, aside from your genes, your diet plays a huge role in your chances of developing diabetes. It's not just the intake of sugar that matters, but also of simple starchy carbohydrates such as white bread, rice, noodles, and other refined foods. Here are 2 ways to help you reduce your consumption of starchy carbs and sugars, which I had shared and which people found very helpful. One is to add protein and fiber to every meal you take. That is, don't eat starchy carbs by themselves. For example, if you're going to eat a big bowl of noodles or rice, add eggs, add tofu, meat, seafood, or vegetables to it. Adding protein and fiber will slow down your digestion of the starches and sugars, and it will also make you feel fuller quicker so you won't have to eat so much of the carbs. I often see people in Singapore eating a whole bowl of noodles with hardly any protein or vegetables. This is not good. The second way is don't drink liquid sugar. And what do I mean by this? We all know that sugary soft drinks are full of sugar and calories. But many people don't realize that even so-called healthy foods like fruit juice are also packed with sugar. And don't be fooled into thinking that because it's natural and therefore healthy, it is good for you. It is not. Your body treats fruit juice the same way as table sugar, so watch out for that. It's much healthier to eat a whole fruit rather than drinking the juice, because fruit juice is concentrated. Also, watch out for lattes and macchiatos from coffee cafes. These are loaded with sugar, sweeteners, flavorings, and milk. Just 1 glass of Frappuccino, for example, has over 500 calories, and a lot of that is sugar. Tip number 6, saturated fat and trans fat are worse for you than cholesterol. Now, there's a common belief that if we eat high cholesterol foods, we will end up having high cholesterol in our bodies. It seems to make sense, right? And for many years, medical professionals did advise and warn people to avoid high cholesterol foods. But extensive research has shown that high cholesterol foods by themselves do not cause an increase in cholesterol levels in the body, and especially they do not contribute to cardiovascular disease. And this is because the body actually makes all the cholesterol it needs, and it absorbs a relatively small amount of cholesterol from some foods. Most of the cholesterol in your blood is not from the foods you consume, but is actually produced by your liver. Your genes play a bigger role in your cholesterol level than your diet, as your genetics will determine how effectively your liver regulates your cholesterol level. Now, if your family has a history of heart disease, or if you have high levels of the bad LDL cholesterol, a low cholesterol diet may be beneficial for you and help protect you from heart disease. But for the rest of us who don't have this genetic trait, high cholesterol foods, especially those that contain more of the good HDL cholesterol, are not going to increase your cholesterol levels. But that doesn't mean that diet doesn't play a role in high cholesterol and heart disease. Let me explain. There are foods that do raise bad cholesterol levels, and the two worst culprits are the bad fats and simple starchy carbohydrates. That's right, the biggest influence on blood cholesterol level is the amount of fats and carbohydrates in your diet, not the amount of cholesterol you eat from food. The two bad fats that you have to watch out for are trans fats and saturated fats, along with simple, starchy, and sugary carbohydrates. These foods will increase your bad cholesterol levels, increase the amount of triglycerides in your blood. Triglycerides are fat in your blood, and increase your risk of heart disease and diabetes. Now, trans fat is especially bad. It not only increases the levels of the bad LDL cholesterol, it also reduces the amount of the good HDL cholesterol. So it's got a doubly bad effect. Point number 7, exercise can extend, save, and enhance your life. We've all heard this before, and that's because it is so important and true. Exercise is vital for our health. It doesn't just help lower stress, which harms the immune system. It also brings about a whole host of other physiological and psychological benefits as well. Exercise is essential and beneficial for our cardiovascular health, but it also helps the body in so many ways, including brain function, prevention of Alzheimer's, mental and emotional health, and also our immunity. Here are some of the ways that researchers have found that exercise helps the body by fighting infections. 1, by increasing blood circulation, lymphatic drainage, and oxygen intake, exercise may help flush out bacteria out of the lungs and airways. This may reduce your chance of getting a cold or flu or other respiratory illnesses. 2, exercise causes changes in antibodies and white blood cells, which are the soldiers of the body's immune system that fight invaders. These antibodies and white blood cells circulate more rapidly, and so they're able to detect illnesses earlier than they might have before. And 3, exercise also causes an increase in body temperature, and this may prevent bacteria and viruses from growing. This temperature rise may help the body fight infection better. This is similar to what happens, for example, when we have a fever. 4, exercise also slows down the release of stress hormones and causes the brain to release endorphins, which are powerful stress relief compounds that make you feel good. Now, any kind of exercise will help the body, from strength training in the gym to going on runs or just brisk walking. What's really important is that you get your body moving and exercise for at least 30 minutes 3 times a week. It is really a small effort that will reap big health rewards for you. And finally, the point which I want to leave with you, which is so important, is that obesity and being overweight is bad for everyone's health, but especially for children. In many Asian cultures, being chubby is considered not only cute, but even desirable in children. And for millennia, when many countries lived through famine and poverty, having body fat was a sign of wealth and prosperity. Even today, we think it's fine for children to be chubby, and the term baby fat is used well beyond the childhood years, and somehow it's considered safer or better compared to adult fat. Now, baby fat is perfectly fine and desirable in babies, but as they get older, especially as they enter their teen years, much less so. Many parents mistakenly think that their overweight children will magically lose weight as they get older, even as they keep feeding them the same foods and allowing them to follow the same lifestyle. But here's the shocking truth. Between 70 to 80% of children who are overweight or obese upon entering adolescence will remain obese as adults. 70 to 80%. This is shocking, and parents need to realize that by allowing your child to be overweight, you'll be very likely condemning your child to a lifetime of obesity and thereby opening them up to many debilitating illnesses and a shorter lifespan. Yes, it's that serious. Because obesity, same as in kids as with adults, puts you at a greater risk of many serious illnesses that you would not expect to find in children or young people. Children who have obesity are more likely to have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which are risk factors for cardiovascular disease. They are more likely to develop insulin resistance and therefore type 2 diabetes. They suffer from breathing problems such as asthma and sleep apnea. They will have joint problems and musculoskeletal pains at an earlier age. And they can even develop fatty liver disease, gallstones and acid reflux and heartburn, which can damage your vocal cords. So the medical evidence is very clear. Obesity and being overweight is not healthy in anyone in any age. And you should really make the effort to lose at least some of that weight. And you'll see the health benefits very quickly. So there you have it, my list of the 8 most important health and wellness information that everyone needs to know and remember. Of course, I covered much more than these 8 points over the past year. So do go back and watch the episodes and refresh yourself on the important and potentially life-saving information in them. The most important thing I want to leave you all with for now is that although our genes play a role in our health, what matters much more is our lifestyle, our diets, and our habits. We have far more control over our health than many people think. And what we do today will have a huge impact on how healthy we will be in the days, months, and years ahead. So never take your health for granted and don't think you have no control over it. Take charge of your own health and make sure, therefore, that you can live a long, healthy, and happy life. So thank you for joining me for all of these weeks of Healthzone with Gilbert Cheah. I hope we will be back again to be able to present you a new show with more important information. But thank you for now, and goodbye.